Hello, everyone. This is Cody Lee of BlackCatBooks.org, author of I, the Dragon, Cruel and Beautiful, Rabbit Hole, Lore and Fray, and the upcoming Jaw of the Dragon. So, with the release of Bayonetta 3, it kind of dawned on me, considering like what some no-name YouTubers were putting out there, that no one was really paying attention to the Metacritic scores. Nobody really posts them anymore. Nobody really talks about them. It's not something that anyone really talks about. And so, like, I kind of took a glance on there to kind of see, like, what was up, like, where Bayonetta was ranked and stuff like that. And yeah, I did notice something immediately, something that immediately stuck to me as off. And an example, one of many numerous examples as to why Metacritic is a complete trash pile and shouldn't be taken seriously by anyone. Bayonetta 2 has a much higher Metacritic score than Bayonetta 3. Like Bayonetta 2 has like a 92 and Bayonetta 3 has like an 88 as of this recording. This is ridiculous considering how I and several other fans almost universally consider Bayonetta 3 to be better than Bayonetta 2. Like I would go so far as to say like Bayonetta 2 was a disappointment in my eyes. I found it very underwhelming and that was a very very big reason why I was not hyped for Bayonetta 3 going into this is that like Platinum has had a very iffy track record and I fully expected them to like blunder Bayonetta 3 in some way, whether it was from like the social justice angle or the gameplay angle. Like I was expecting something to be very very wrong with Bayonetta 3, and other than like the graphics not being very good, which honestly is a problem that a lot of modern smaller Japanese games are having right now. No More Heroes 3 is a good example. Deadly Premonition 2. There are other than like the graphical issues or right with the lack of fidelity, like the game is objectively just not as pretty as Bayonetta 1 or 2. Bayonetta 3 in general is like a huge improvement over 2 with way more content, way more interesting stage design, way better combat, way more interesting weapons like brutal new demons. Like there's so many things about 3 that's an upgrade to 2, like so much so I have a hard time thinking of anything that 2 did better at all other than like maybe the art direction and maybe some of the music. Like they're I haven't done like a comparison between like the soundtracks of Bayonetta games, so I can't really say which one's my favorite. But like my impression is that like 3 is not quite as good as the first two. But that might be me just being you know not being like objective about it but because I haven't listened to like the soundtrack of 2 in years, ever since I 100% it. So again, like I'm criticizing a game I haven't played in like quite a long time, but I have played Bayonetta 2 a lot, right? Like I have done everything there is to do in that game. I do know a lot about it, and I can tell you, as someone who's put more time into it than any of the game journalists who's played it to death, like 60 hours worth of gameplay, who's extensively played the original. Uh, 3 is, a considerable improvement over both of them in a lot of ways. Like, even if you prefer the original, like I do, like, there's no denying that, like, 3 is a massive improvement over it. Well, in some ways, right? Some minor, just modernized ways. But 2 is not as good as either, right? And yet it has the highest Metacritic score. And I really wonder as to why. I do think it's because at the time the myth that Bayonetta is like an LGBT feminist icon, or at that point like a feminist icon, had kind of taken full root. Because again, I wanted to do a video about this in particular, but my belief is that initially Bayonetta was like very very unpopular with feminists and SJWs and game journal activists because of like really really emphasizing the over sexualization of the character, right? It was extremely criticized for that reason initially. However, the very few people in that community who actually played the game, people like Movie Bob and Jim Sterling, they kind of took this idea, presented this idea of like, oh wait, Bayonetta is like extremely feminine. It embraces its feminine nature. Like Bayonetta is a strong action hero who doesn't need a man. And so from there, it kind of became this warped situation where like a lot of feminists were kind of weaponizing Bayonetta as a concept, to kind of push their agenda, right? Bayonetta was a hot topic button issue during Gamergate, for example. Like Anita Sarkeesian was using the franchise to like push her agenda. Christina Hoff Sommers was using the series as an example of a positive female role model in video games. Like there were like a lot of feminists like defending Bayonetta at that time, and as a result of that, I think game journalists really took that angle and really used it to celebrate like a mediocre release without really talking about like how it compared to the original, like actual fans. And the positive reception to Bayonetta 2 always confused me, but I do think that is the case. Why Bayonetta 2 is so highly rated compared to like the other superior games in the franchise is just this unrelated political bullshit. And this is why I have such an issue with this kind of thing, because we're no longer evaluating games based on their quality or what they bring to the table or what they do or anything like that. We're talking about games for political issues. Like we're praising games for political issues, and that's not really something we should be doing. I think this is just a testament to how toxic the culture is right now, in that like Bayonetta 2 is praised for being a feminist friendly LGBT like icon, right? But then 3 gets shit on for kind of stomping all over that idea, right? Because it kind of follows through on what the series has been building up to all along, in that like Bayonetta and Luca are a thing, and they do have a daughter together, and they do have a happy family life. Like Bayonetta is a normal woman in a lot of respects, like, and that is something that I think like really terrifies the LGBT community, because there is nothing they hate more than a woman who enjoys her station in life. They hate housewife culture. They hate like happily married women. They hate these kind of people. They despise them because they're jealous and envious of something that they'll never really have for themselves. That's the feminism industry. That's the LGBT community. That's why we're seeing such a big backlash to Bayonetta 3. So I think more gamers really need, well, that we have been, I think. I think it's this kind of thing that has really been leading to gamers like myself ignoring Metacritic in the recent past, right? With The Last of Us Part 2 and game journalists like really, really trying their hardest to push this narrative that it was actually a great game. The whole system kind of collapsed. Nobody relies on it anymore. Nobody talks about it. Right now, I feel like most people are talking about and playing games purely on word of mouth. And honestly, I think that's how things should be.